costly mistakes that executors or administrators make and how to avoid them. Probate comes with a list of potential pitfalls that can cause mistakes and problems with an executor. Here's what we see and how to avoid them. So, mistake number one, delays. Often we'll see, and this is completely understandable, you only have 4 years to probate a will. When you're going through the grief process, often we don't want to take those steps to get the will probated, to collect and administer the estate, and sometimes that can be very difficult to do. You have 4 years to do it, but if you don't do it within that timeline, there's consequences, and it's much more difficult to probate a will if you miss that timeline. So the way to avoid this is to know what to expect, know what's going to happen after your death or after your loved one's death, and be proactive so that when that time comes, some of this is just going through the motions. Mistake number two, early distribution of funds. So we talked in another video about wanting no oversight from the court and how that's beneficial. But even if you have an independent administration, there are still rules. You still have to distribute assets and pay debts according to law. And so what you don't want to do is pay the beneficiaries of the estate and be left holding the bag for the debts. So make sure that you take care of all the debts and the taxes of the estate before you distribute it. Mistake number three, ignoring the portability election. So this one is a little bit complicated. It really only affects people whose combined estate, so a married couple whose combined estate is worth 6 or 7 million. That's when you have to start thinking about this mistake. Couples who are worth 12 to 13 million, if you haven't planned, go plan right now. The mistake that we see is not electing to take the unused portion of your deceased spouse federal tax, what's the word I'm looking for? Exemption. Yes, thank you. So make sure that within the timeline, I think it's 5 years you have to make that election, but make sure you do it because it's hard to undo. Take the tax exemption so that if you do have a combined estate that's within the realm of that tax exemption, you're not giving 40% of your assets to the government. Mistake number four, not following the will. When you are appointed by the probate court as administrator or as executor, you have to take an oath to obey what the will says. This is kind of, a lot of times it's just, okay, my attorney told me to sign this, I signed this, but it's an oath. You're saying, I promise that whatever is in this will, I'm going to abide by. And that seems easy, but sometimes if your loved one has told you that, they want their house to go to their child or a cousin or something like that, even if they told you verbally, that is not going to be honored, and you cannot honor their verbal wishes if what their will says is something different. You're going to get in trouble if you do that. So obey the will, honor your oath. Mistake number five, overlooking assets. Make sure that you've gone through the decedent's paperwork. If you are the person writing your will, if you're the person preparing for your loved ones to manage your estate, make sure to keep a list so that whoever is managing your estate after your death doesn't have to go through paperwork or try to find passwords for your accounts online. We don't want your estate to be just held up or for your loved ones to miss out on part of your estate that nobody knows about. That goes along with life insurance policies, IRAs. Make sure that you keep a list that's accessible, not password protected, that somebody that you trust knows the location of. Mistake number 6, lack of communication. I see this all the time. Communicate, if you can, communicate with the people who you're leaving your estate to. Make sure they know your wishes so that they're not surprised after your death. We see this all the time. People, death in general is a difficult thing for a lot of people to go through, to process when their loved one dies, but you don't want them to be wondering why you did this. We want your loved ones to know what to expect, and that also avoids potential will conflicts and litigation, which nobody wants. It's not good for anybody. Mistake number 7, misunderstanding probate versus non-probate assets. This is a common mistake. Basically, anything that you have a beneficiary or payable on death designation for, anything that's contractual, you've contracted with a bank or a financial institution that when you die, your assets are going to go here, life insurance policies, those are going to be non-probate assets. Your will does not control them unless they don't have beneficiary designations. So make sure you understand the difference and know how each asset is going to be distributed after your death. Mistake number 8, mishandling estate funds. The executor of an estate, when you get appointed executor or administrator and you take that oath, you are also undertaking what's called a fiduciary duty to the beneficiaries of the estate. So although you have a lot of power, with that comes a lot of responsibility. It's like Spider-Man. You can't, for instance, sell yourself the decedent's property for, much less than it's worth, or divide the estate improperly because you like your sister more than your brother. There's legal consequences for doing that, and you should know about that because it can cost you money out of your own pocket. Mistake number 9, relying on non-professionals. This is another one that causes huge problems. People want to do things themselves. People want to Google. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's where we see the biggest disasters happen, is people going on the internet to do what they think they're supposed to do, and often they're only getting it halfway right. Make sure that you seek professionals' advice because that's what they're there for, and they can save you money in the long run. Mistake number 10, ignoring claims of the estate. So there's a claims process in any estate proceeding. The important thing about this one is to consult your attorney, because sometimes there are things that your attorney can give you advice on to save money. There are certain claims that you should not pay for one reason or another. Maybe they weren't presented properly to the estate. This is really a case-by-case situation that you're going to want to consult your attorney for, because it's not something that you can that you might know just off the cuff. Mistake number 11, self-dealing. I talked about this earlier. You can't use the decedent's assets as if they are your own. You really need to act as if these are arm's length transactions, meaning if an asset would sell for X amount of dollars on the market, you need to make sure that that asset is being sold for something similar, or that asset is being divided properly. You can't pick and choose to benefit yourself, or somebody is going to, maybe not for sure, but you're opening yourself up to lawsuits if you do that. Mistake number 12, mishandling tangible assets. So I see this one a lot. I see people often want to ask me, well, how do I divide, or how do I tell my family members to divide my estate, especially people who have a lot of personal property. It can be challenging to divide up those assets and make it make it a fair division. You can see if somebody has a lot of, collectibles, coins, paintings, or even just your household um, belongings, it's difficult to distribute those so that it's fair. You can do things like have an estate sale, and then cash, of course, is easy to divide up equally. But the main thing here is just to be aware that these things have to be distributed reasonably equal, and just make sure that you have a basis for making those divisions. So these are 12 common mistakes that we see and how to avoid them. The main thing here is consult your professionals. That's what they're here for. That's what they specialize in. They're there to help you, and they're there to save you money.